What's up, y'all? Welcome to In Tune, a podcast by TBD Magazine, where we feature and have beautiful conversations with creatives in the South, in Louisiana, talking about their creative journey, their creative process, and kind of learn a little bit about, what they're inspired by, what they do, and really just get down into the details. Today, we have the incredible DJ Funke, and I'm going to let you take it away.
How's it going? I'm Funke. Originally from Memphis, Tennessee, and I would definitely say I consider myself a son of Griot for the most part.
That's beautiful. Could you go into detail about that a little bit?
Well, I've been in music all my life. It's the longest commitment since breathing for me, actually.
Yeah.
And with that, music has definitely been a part of every aspect of my life. I would say when my uncle was killed like maybe a couple of months after I was born. And what I discovered of him was like all his music. Like that was pretty much what he left behind. Like those are the memories I have of him. So, and to be like his 8-track player, all his 8 tracks, music posters or whatnot. And so that kind of gave me, a footing of, where he was in the world with music.
Right.
I also kind of segue with my granny, who not necessarily a DJ or musician or anything like that, but an archivist. She would take her little tape recorder and record sermons.
That's beautiful.
Every single sermon, every Sunday, that's what she would do. And so, on those same recordings, at that time I was listening to K97, which was my favorite radio station at the time in Memphis.
Okay.
And I would take those same sermons, take the toilet paper, put the little wads, and record over her sermons and make my own mixtapes. This was at 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. No, so literally innate completely to you and your creative process. That's really beautiful. So tell me a little bit more, or let's go a little bit, that's you at 6 years old. What was that like, I guess, that musical journey for you into, into your teenage years, maybe a little bit into your early adulthood, and like kind of talking about maybe the spaces and people in Memphis who, I guess, touched you, transformed you into, I guess, a closer phase to where you are now?
So, like I said, my granny, because that's still going on into my teens. And by then, I would say the radio station K97 I was listening to a lot. My cousin, who wasn't my cousin at the time, he was dating my cousin, and then they ended up marrying. But he was a well-known radio, personality, and so that's why, I was recording his sets or whatever. And then I learned of other DJs, Howard Q and Boogaloo Boyer, who like at late night they would play like ghetto house. So stuff that we wouldn't necessarily hear on the radio, because like it was pretty, there was some foul stuff, of course. But it was played late at night, and it was played in a club, so they're broadcasting this. So yeah, they don't necessarily do broadcasts from clubs anymore, which I actually kind of miss. And so listening to the music on the radio, I would say about 13, 14, I moved to St. Louis, so now I have cable. Here comes Caribbean Rhythms, and Caribbean Rhythms really opened my eyes to like other music. I'm like, oh wow, like these people, really, they look like me. They don't necessarily sound like me, but this music is very similar or whatnot. And so, I was definitely drawn into that. in the midst of that, I was playing the viola and the cello as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you play instruments as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I started with the viola and then eventually went to the cello. Would do sit-ins with the Alton Symphony Orchestra like in 8th grade.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm sure that those experiences were unlike anything. I mean, what was it like for you to be a part of an orchestra at such a young age? Like, how did it feel? Not personally, but artistically.
Well, it was very interesting because our teacher, Dr. Hefferkamp, she only took us two. It was me and another kid, Ethiopian kid, Mehdi Boyd. He played the cello. Mm-hmm. And so we're the only, like, you know, black people, black kids in these orchestras. And they are, you know, stark white,
Right.
way older. And I was, you know, I never understood why she put us in those positions, but I'm so grateful now.
For sure.
And what that has taught us. And so, you know, being in that and the rigorous practicing of, you know, playing a string instrument, it's a lot. I mean, even at 7th grade, backtrack, when I was living in Memphis, I was going to a creative and performing arts school. Okay. So we had our own separate report cards from our academic report cards, like our musical report card. And so we had like so many hours that we were required to practice a day, a week, or whatnot. You know, doing all of that, wearing gray and black and white and navy, doing all the competitions. I even majored in music ed at Jackson State University with a concentration in the viola. I kind of decided I didn't want to do that with my life anymore. It was kind of boring.
No, I guess, like, let's talk about a little bit about, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Your time at Jackson, what that was like. I know you said you went to school, like university.
Yeah, Jackson State. Yeah, Jackson State, definitely a party school. I enjoyed it. It was a waste of my parents' money. I'm gonna just say that right now. It was a waste of my parents' money because everything that I was involved in, music-wise, art-wise, I'm doing now without those degrees. And so, you know, I'm pretty sure that she's still paying for it. But I'm definitely grateful for that time there because I'm in the same music building with the band. I also had to learn piano during that time and do applied viola, which was that was rigorous training, just me and the instructor and just playing away. Hated it.
So I guess, and kind of like talking about coming from, like, I guess, like a very, like, not traditional, but like instrumental music background, and to coming into DJing. Tell us a little bit about that journey for you and how that, I mean, of course you were telling me like you were making mixtapes since you were 6 years old, but what was, I guess, maybe a moment or a transition moment between you at Jackson State and then coming into a different space, especially musically?
Well, being at Jackson State and seeing, you know, the rigorous practice of that. On the flip side of that, I'm going to the gay clubs in Jackson. Okay. And so
Tell
that's
us a little
where...
bit, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
But I would love to hear more about also like the queer nightlife at Jackson as well.
And so that was kind of my introduction of being in it real time. So the music that I was listening to, Howard Q, Boogaloo Boyer on the broadcast, now I'm in it.
In person.
Yeah, in Jackson, Mississippi. And those were fun times. And it was all, you know, the stuff that I remember, the Ghetto House, you know, DJ Sluggo, who I think is going to be here, like, if not this coming week, the next week or something like that. DJ Dion. And so it was a very freeing time. We were all queer. We didn't necessarily call ourselves that, but we just call ourselves family.
Right.
That was it. You know what I mean? And the dancing, yeah, like we would all just kind of be like all up on each other like a train, you know, certain songs or whatever, like
just vibe.
yeah, you know, and I miss that. And so that definitely stuck in my musical, you know, upbringing or whatnot. And then many years later, not too many years later, I was in Atlanta. This by then I've already dropped out of Jackson State. I'm in Atlanta and I'm working in Little 5 Points. Little 5 Points is kind of like the bohemian, like hippie area. It's also kind of like a vortex. And so,
How so? Won't you?
Spiritually,
Got you.
some of everything there. Good, bad, neutral.
Got you.
And so, but there's also a lot of famous people that, you know, Atlanta kind of reminds me of New Orleans in a way where everybody's around.
Yeah.
They're celebrity, but, you know, we don't treat everybody, you know what I mean?
Right.
We just
No,
treat
we're all-
people
this
like
is-
regular people.
Of course.
And so, yeah, just being there in Atlanta and working right across the street from this space called Moods Music and buying a whole stock of music there. And then from there, just going to other parties in Atlanta and just seeing what it actually feels like, because by then I'm kind of in house more, but now I'm seeing house, not necessarily the ghetto house, is another version or another, you know, angle of house, and it's more soulful. People are still, you know, very free or whatnot. And so, just experiencing that in Atlanta, I knew that I wanted to be involved in music. I didn't know what, but I was like, it ain't playing the viola, it ain't playing no cello, no piano, but it's gonna be music. I'm not necessarily sure what. But I also knew that it couldn't necessarily happen right then and there in Atlanta. And I didn't force it either. So it was like, okay. And actually I left Atlanta the same year House in the Park started. I might have even left around the same time. And so it wasn't until I was in Memphis when I moved back in my 20s, so like 2004. I was hanging with a friend at a sushi bar, and they had a DJ there. And I was like, wow, this is the first I've ever seen for, you know, something like Memphis. I've seen that in Atlanta and other places, but not in Memphis. So I was like, okay, well, I just went up to him and I was like, hey, DJ Irie, Brian Hamilton. And I was like, yo, I always wanted to like learn how to DJ. He was like, well, I'll go talk to the other manager and then we'll see what's up. So by the very next week, I was already there.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And so by then I already had my own collection of music that I was already, you know, I already had a repertoire.
Right.
I didn't necessarily know how to use the technology yet. And so that's all it took. So here I am at this sushi bar every Thursday, learning on the fly. And he was a very, you know, laid back, hands-off kind of teacher. He basically, if I have any questions, he'll let me know, you know, but other than that, like, I'm just, yeah, just let me do my thing and just let me figure it out. And him and the other manager happened to be DJs as well. And they were like, well, you have a really, for you to just be starting, you have a really solid sound already, and it takes people years to kind of really develop their sound, but you kind of already have it. So it's like, oh, okay, got it. And so from there, it took off from that thought of, you know, being in Atlanta, saying like, hey, I know I want to do something in music, to actually, like, you know, not too long after living in Memphis, and then getting that real-time, hands-on training in front of people, train wrecks and all, in front of people, which I think is also beautiful, because there's that infamous sync button that people love to use, because people are not afraid to fuck up. And if people don't get to know your worst, how can they know your best? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's why, you know, messing up in front of a crowd, I'm like, yeah, that's nothing. That's how I started. You know what I mean? And because there's some people that will freak out and, you know, and have a whole fit for the next 2-3 weeks, don't want to come out because of that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's life. It's surfing. It's like driving. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, yeah, the road is straight, but there's a rock in the road. You know what I mean? There's never going to be, you'll never play the same gig twice. Not even, I don't even care if it's in the same venue. Guess what? The monitor may be out that day. They done shifted the equipment this way. You know what I mean? There are all these other variables that people don't necessarily consider. And so it's really, you know, a pilot steering their ship the best way possible.
You're conducting a room, conducting a space. And I would love to know more. I mean, I think that's really incredible the way you describe it, like the surfing and really just like in that process of like building that intuitive language. Just really hearing more about how you did, not even how, but like how you practice that intuitive language on every set that you have, or kind of what that creative process looks like for you as you are either preparing for a set or just curating.
Well, as far as curating for different events, I always take in consideration the event itself. So that's the main intention. Like, what does this event sound like as a whole? What do the people look like? What do they feel like? What is the energy that I get from being in this space? Once I have that data, then I go to my, you know, library, and then I pull out all the things that remind me of that event. And yet, at the same time, when it comes to being in at that event, also being an empty vessel. So yeah, these are the things that inspired me for this event. Yet, I have no idea what I'm going to play. This is all about what I'm feeling within myself, what I'm getting from the crowd. And so, not necessarily winging it, but yeah, like really flowing, you know, through it, you know, in an intuitive way. If there is something that is definitely to the letter, that means I have something to say. Like, no, I'm about to let you know this. And for beginning, middle, and end, sonically. And that's that on that. But majority of the time, it is, what event I had played the other, I can't remember. But I know I had the first 2 songs down and the last 2. I knew those are those 4 songs were the ones I wanted to do. Everything else in between it, I had no, no idea. And so I love the beauty of that, because it'll never be the same gig twice. I can't even perform the same, like it won't have the same feeling. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I want to take this opportunity to start playing some of the songs you have on the playlist.
Oh wow,
Since we're-
it's a shuffle. There's a lot of stuff. Not a lot, but I mean, there's a range for a sense.
I mean, if you want to talk about also about like what was on your mind as you were kind of like preparing the playlist, or what I guess what you with that combination of things that you chose and what that.
All the things that definitely inspired me or milestones for me in music. I know there's one. Oh, there's a cardinal. Hi. Yeah, something right there. A female.
So sweet.
Yeah. Like one in particular, maybe Far Side Passing Me By, that's on that playlist. But that was like one of my favorite songs as a kid. Like that was the song that I always recorded on the mixtape as a kid when it came on the radio. You know what I mean? So like certain things like that, like that was. And then hip hop was fun back then. You know, it was light and carefree. It's definitely not the same anymore. I don't even know if I put my cousin's track on there.
Let me see.
No.
I'm sorry.
I'll put it on there though. And then also like Lil Trim, The Cars That Go Boom, which is so funny because that was like a favorite as a kid. And then found out later through Ancestry.com and doing my research with my genealogy that Bunny and I are cousins from Lil Trim. I was like, okay. So it kind of runs in the family, like sound. My mom likes speakers. My granny's an archivist, cousin DJ, uncle's a musician. So
that's beautiful. So you feel like you carry them with you?
Oh, very much so. Like I'm also, once I get some time to really do another genealogy dig, the next one is on the Boldens, because I want to find out what is my connection to the pioneer of jazz. My mother maiden name is Bolden. And so we have Buddy Bolden down here, who was the pioneer of jazz, and I want to see the connection because there are not that many Boldens. Phenotype wise, from the things that I've seen, he looks very much like my grandfather.
Wow.
So it would be dope to find that connection out or whatnot, and it could also be, you know, another reason why I'm also here as well in the city. So
and I really want to get into that, talking about your journey, of course throughout the South as we've been talking about, but even more so how New Orleans has informed your project. Okay, so let's talk about it. Tell us about this one.
Funny. Though that song, Far Side, Keep Passing Me By, was a song that I heard in the 80s, you know, late 80s, early 90s, a lot. And so I was taking those cassette tapes that my granny, you know, recorded those sermons over. And that one right there was definitely almost always on a mixtape. I don't care, like, if I had it on 5 others, like, that's gonna be there. And my mother had one of those boom boxes, not like a Radio Raheem boom box, but maybe like an intro to Radio Raheem. And it had like the EQs or whatnot. So I think that also kind of, you know, helped me, kind of brought me to where I am, playing with the knobs or whatever. But yeah, I was using her boom box, recording that song right there.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Yep.
I love that. That's so funny that it was the first one to come out.
The first one. Too funny. Yeah.
I really do. I mean, you've been mentioning, and I think that I really want to talk about this whenever you mentioned you layering your mixtapes with the sermons that your own grandmother had recorded, I really want to get into maybe talking about how spiritual practices or your spirituality also comes into your own creative work.
A lot. A lot. I'm a Lukumi practitioner, Chadavoya. So that leads my life in a very interesting direction. A reason why a lot of people don't see me a lot out in the nightlife. Because there's just certain things that, we also have to live by,
right.
And with that, I can't say it's an easy life, but once once I'm obedient to those things and I see it, like, oh, I see how you're making my life easier. You know what I mean? One of those things, me not drinking.
Right.
And so, I infuse a lot of Orisha music into my set. Always, there's going to be something to the Egun, Shango, Oya, Oshun, because it's so much part of my life, and it's also a way, I would say a lot of these rhythms that we're playing, whether it be hip hop, house, rock, if we really listen to it, some of these things are actually, they call them tokes, or rhythms for a specific Orisha. It's already there, we just don't know about it, you know what I mean? Especially in hip hop, you know what I mean? Even in second line, you hear it. And it's usually, metal. We're, celebrating or, talking to Ogun or that element of nature or whatnot. And so it's hard to escape that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Even though my grandmother wasn't necessarily in this tradition, she's very much Christian and hoodoo. Undertones of that was still very much, these Orishas or whatnot. And it's like, okay, I see what you're saying and what you're not saying. Right. You know what I mean?
No, it's between the things that are between the lines that make the most. So, and taking into consideration too that like Christianity is a religion that's been passed down by colonization in many ways. So how so many things, languages can be changed or shifted into something while in reality is still the same.
Right. And then we also had to use Catholicism with Santeria in order to disguise these Orishas, in order for people to still practice their religion in the way that they do. And so I keep it, it's always around in my music in some shape or form. I do my best to carry myself with Iwa Pele or balanced character as much as possible, But sometimes you gotta pop out and show. Sometimes you gotta pop out and show. But other than that, I keep to myself into the music because I know what this music can do. It's a real healing modality as well as dance, you know what I mean? And my goal here in this city is to really bridge the gap of club culture and the club. When I say club culture, I mean like dance culture.
Okay. Do you think, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
But I really do want to talk about dance culture. I feel like the shifts, especially in a space, in a like dance space, I feel like we are currently in a different, I feel like, vibe than like in the past. You know, like people are maybe not as in tune or as present, and very shifted away by other things. Like, for example,
the motherfucking phone.
Yes,
I hate
like,
the phone.
We should be dancing, like,
Exactly.
on the floor, throwing down.
Exactly.
But yes, tell me a little bit about your perspective about.
And so it's very interesting. I was looking at some videos of an old party I did in Memphis called Jungle Boogie. I ran that for like 13 years or so.
Tell us a little bit more about it. What was the concept, I guess, behind it, and just everything?
Well, I had a sound already, but this sound didn't necessarily. I didn't necessarily see it reflected back at me. You know, it was a mighty white scene. And it was sprinkled with a few black DJs, you know, not to say that they weren't there or whatnot, but there weren't the black people dancing, you know what I mean? And so me and Angela Hotto McQuarrie, before she got married, we got together and was like, we just want to, you know, do something very diverse and, you know, a different sound. I'm like, well, I'm already the different sound.
Right.
But this diversity thing, let's make it happen, because, yeah, I'm going to these house music events in Memphis, but it's maybe me and 4 other black people that are there, period, the whole night. So we started an event called Jungle Boogie in 2010 of April. I wanted to call it Jungle Bunny just because I like to do play on words and in a way to, like, you know, shake some shit up in the city or whatever. Didn't do it. We're just on Jungle Boogie. Because even that still causes, you know, some issue or whatever. But like, we did that party. We invested $2 in that party on posters. And that night we made $200. Wow. And so we was like, oh, we got something. That's all it took. That is all it took for Angela and I to be like, you know what? Everything that we done seen at Soul Summit, what they doing in Atlanta, what they doing in Jersey, what they doing in Los in Cali, we can do that right here.
I love that.
And so that's what we did. And so we had, you know, the Fela paint, percussionists, I mean, and people were dancing, like letting loose, like crawling on the floor type shit. There were no fucking cell phones around, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And at least not phones with this type of quality or whatever. We didn't care, so I didn't have to tell anybody no cell phones on the dance floor. If you wanted a really good camera, you actually bought. You brought your real camera. You know what I mean?
Picture,
yeah, or video, what I mean. And so it was definitely a different time. I looked at those videos, I'm like, there were no cell phones in any of these videos. Everybody was into it. Now, motherfuckers are worried about what they, you know, what other people are wearing. People need, you know, a certain amount of drugs in order to feel the music, when the music is the goddamn drug. You know,
let it use you.
People are too cool to dance, to, you know, what would they look like if they, you know, did something that wasn't, you know, outside of, you know,
I think that,
popular or whatever.
For sure. And my bad for interrupting.
No, you're fine.
I think I really wanna, like, based on what you're just telling me, like, and even through our entire conversation and how you've been talking about house music and the house scene, I think even as you're mentioning right now, like that disconnect, I'm very clear, and I'm sure that, you know, this is all due to capitalism. But I really want to talk about a little bit, maybe about, I mean, and your personal experience, like how these spaces have shifted, you know, maybe specifically through consumerism or capitalism, and I don't know.
I think it's more so social media than anything like, because capitalism been capitalizing.
Right.
Period. That ain't never stopped. But this machine of social media has definitely become a monster. And even in the aspect of, dancers and DJs, because now motherfuckers want to be seen. I just posted something on Facebook not too long ago. I was like, I remember the time where there were DJs and producers. I didn't know what the fuck they looked like at all. Like, it wasn't until I read about them in a magazine or I went to the party myself did I know what they look like. Other than that, there were no pictures like, hey, look at me, I'm going to eat, gelato, you know what I mean, on the Sunset Boulevard. We don't care.
Right.
And so, like, all these like cute little posts and for what?
Yeah.
And I know people tell me, you should do this. Why? You got this flyer of me playing this party. That's it. If you want to know what I look like, show up.
Right.
And even then, why are you looking at me? You should be actually with your eyes closed and into the music. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for the people. Like,
yeah, no, definitely.
all that other stuff is just so, superfluous and unnerving, and it really waters down what we consider underground.
For sure. And I want to bring it back to just that, what you're talking about, and talking about Jungle Boogie specifically. And I think that, like, through building these intentional spaces, I'm sure it completely informs where you are now in your journey. And let's talk about a little bit more, also, like you were saying, like preserving the underground scene and how, like, those are things that I feel like are intentionally done. So can you maybe expand a little bit about just that you were just mentioning?
I do my best to preserve this culture. I definitely would say I've been around elders. A lot of people don't know that Larry Heard lives in Memphis. And so, like, when I'm starting out DJing, like Larry Heard and Robert Owens, will be in a hookah bar listening to me and Saturna, and it may only be like 10 other people there or whatever. But, like, to have such a high caliber DJ, pioneer of this music itself, kind of
It's crazy.
checking on what you're doing, it's like, oh no, we can't play around here, like and I think that's the beauty of Memphis too, because we had that kind of pressure and like umbrella of mentorship, even though he may not have done it hands-on, but his presence made the Memphis DJs rise to the occasion. You know what I mean? And so getting that knowledge, from being around him, the mentors that I had, DJ Irie, and then, going to Atlanta and Salah Ananse taking me in, and people in Chicago, like the people that I've been connected to in this thing really informed me in my early years, to where it's like, oh yeah, I'm here to pass the torch. And it's very interesting because I'm at a very interesting space, not only in age, but in the same realm of like DJing. So like, I don't necessarily consider myself, I'm not a millennial. There's the Exennials right there before, like right after Generation X, but right before them, that little bridge of people. And it's weird because like I came up in that era. Most of my friends or my cousins, they were either going to be much older than me or much younger than me. So I've always been this bridge.
And then in between.
Yeah, it's not always fun.
I believe it.
But I do have the insight of both sides. So I'm grateful for that. And so last year, I remember Salah, I DJ'd the Atlanta Weekender. And Salah was like, "You're the bridge." And I was like, "What?" Then he was talking about the bridge as far as in New Orleans. And I brought him down to New Orleans or whatever. And actually, quite a few of the House in the Park DJs have been down here. Actually, all of them. Only Ramon is the one who hasn't played here yet. But they've been down here. They've seen, you know, what's up. And he was like, "You're the bridge." I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's beautiful.
But like, I get what he's saying. So I do my best to, you know, sometimes with tact, sometimes without, you know. It depends. It depends. But I always giving, showcasing, highlighting the purest part of house. Even in the aspect of the dance culture, like a lot of people didn't know what baby powder was for. And I was like, no, you're not putting baby powder on at the club. You're putting it on the dance floor so you can glide.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, just certain aspects like that is just like totally a miss. And it's like, oh, okay, you know, oh, that's a great outfit you got on, but I don't know if you're going to house it down in that. You know what I mean? Where's your sweat rag? You know what I mean? It's just like...
No, you got to come prepared. It's the intentionality behind it. And I definitely see what you're saying, and I think that those things also reflect a lot too about the way we are interconnected with ourselves and our local community or the people around us, just in general.
Yeah,
you know, like
because you know, because the club dancers are here. They are definitely here. They got their own Instagram page, and I'd be like, hey, that's beautiful. Love to see it. But where are you in the club?
Yes.
Like, for real. Like, this is great. We need this. But we also need this in the club to give the other people permission to fucking free up.
Yep.
But if you're just hanging out here by yourselves in your little bubble, not only you're doing a disservice to yourselves, you're doing a disservice to the culture. You're also doing a disservice to the people who need to see that and experience that. Yeah. So I'll be doing my damnedest to like get these dancers like, yo, I'm playing, bring your ass, bring your ass, bring your ass. Because this is what it's about. Like,